Good afternoon and welcome to IvyLearn Content Partner Series, SmarterMeasure. Are your students ready to learn? My name is Kathy Long and I'm the Senior Training Specialist for the Center for Instructional Technology and for Ivy Tech Community College. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today Tara McLaughlin, who is an expert in all things SmarterMeasure, and she's going to tell us what SmarterMeasure is and how it can be used in your classroom to assess student readiness. Tara, I'm going to go ahead and give you presenter rights. Thank you for being here with us today.
Most definitely. Can you everybody hear me? Or Kathy, can you make sure that I'm still able to be heard?
We can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for coming in and listening to today's presentation. And thank you also, Kathy, for the invitation to present at this IvyLearn Content Partner Series. We at Smarter Services are very honored to be talking to you about what SmarterMeasure is. We've been partners with Ivy Tech for about 10 years now. So for some of you, this may be brand new. For others, you may have heard of SmarterMeasure, and you may just kind of wonder how you can use SmarterMeasure to incorporate it in your courses, in your curriculum. The beginning of a term is the best time to use it. So what we'll do today, I should be sharing my screen, and I have a tentative agenda on the second slide. Sorry, let me get to it. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see. The first part of the presentation, we will be discussing what non-cognitive indicators are and why they should be measured in the classroom. And this could be a virtual online classroom or a face-to-face classroom, so we'll just use classroom in general. And then we'll go into what the actual tool is, the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator. Ivy Tech has a license to this. You're free to use it to your students and to your advantage tomorrow or today if you so choose. So we'll talk about how you can easily add SmarterMeasure as a link in your course shell in IvyLearn Canvas, IvyLearn, and how you can interpret the students' reports and figure out which students are more ready or prepared to learn, which students may have some weaknesses and in what areas, so that you can identify them earlier and provide any type of additional support resources, tutoring, whatever assistance that student or those students may need. And also, those handouts that Kathy mentioned, those are for your, specifically for SmarterMeasure, and how they're best practice ideas for incorporating the tool SmarterMeasure in your class and building content for reflection around it. So you're not just making them take something, you're actually making the students engage in their report. So that gives you some very practical and specific ideas for building content in your course around the SmarterMeasure tool itself. So without further ado, let's get into the actual actual session. If anybody does have any questions, as Kathy said, feel free to use the chat area, and we'll take, I can answer them right away, or at the very end, whatever you prefer, Kathy. This is very informal, so I don't want to get bogged down in these details. But I do have a question. It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer. If you want to use the chat box, you can. But how do you determine who can be enrolled at your school? Oftentimes, in some colleges, there may be some sort of open enrollment, but in other universities, and colleges, there's a minimum entrance requirement. They're looking at their GED or their high school diploma, some type of equivalent. They may have to look at the prior GPA in their high school or their other college work, their SAT and ACT standardized test scores, admissions exams. There's some type of minimum entrance requirement, typically, according to the NACAC, which is the National Association for College Admission Counseling. They rated these factors as considerably important and moderately important in admissions of students to colleges. Now, you'll notice, kind of echoing the slide before, this is really heavy on the student's cognitive ability. So their GPA, their strength of their high school curriculum, their SAT, ACT scores, basically how smart is the student, right? However, why are students dropping out? If schools are doing such a great job of, making sure the students are smart enough to get in, why are those students then dropping out if they're so smart? Bill and Melinda Gates, their foundation polled students who did drop out of college, and they had them they ranked these as the top reasons. And it had nothing to do with the cognitive ability, typically. The first or the top reason why students are dropping out is school conflicts with work, or they can't afford tuition. They don't have support to go to college from their family or their employer. They don't believe that a college degree is valuable to them, or they partied out. So this echoes that as well. This is from the WCET Online College Students Report from 2016. This had the students reporting the top reasons for dropping out of college, very, very similar. Family circumstances was the top reason for students dropping out. They didn't have the money. They ran out of funds. The third top choice was the program content wasn't relevant to them. They took a new job, so forth and so on. So do you see the disconnect? And are you measuring what matters for your students? So this is really just building the case for measuring more than just the students' cognitive abilities. So don't just take my word for it. We'll also look at the experts that value non-cognitives too, and we'll define that as well. But to find out what matters, let's talk about what faculty, college leadership, employers, and parents are already valuing. Online faculty, and again, there may be some of you who teach strictly online, some may face-to-face only, some may be a combination of the two, but there is, through the years of online learning, it has become the traits that students need to have successful online course experience do carry over into their face-to-face courses, even though those are very different instructional delivery methods. Now, this is from the WCET 2013. They polled faculty who teach online and asked them, what are the most important personal characteristics required to succeed as an online student? And you'll notice the top three were self-motivation, personal commitment, and time management skills. So they weren't concerned about the student's GPA. It's not even really on the list. It's more those non-cognitive skills or indicators that students will possess to be successful as online learners. What about their employers? Usually, and that apostrophe should be out, removed. What are the employers looking for in their future employees? Typically, students are going to college to get a job or a better job. So what are their future employers looking for from them? NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, surveyed over 200 employers, and they ranked or rated the importance of candidates' qualities and skills. And you'll see it's a two-way tie for communication skills and honesty and integrity. Now, GPA is on the list, but it's much further down. So they value having a strong work ethic, having interpersonal skills, teamwork, analytical skills, motivation, initiative, flexibility, computer skills, detail-oriented. There's a heavy list of all those non-cognitives that they value even more so than the student's GPA. Do we lump together traditional and non-traditional students in this data? That's a good question, Piper. In this here, the NACE one or the, in the WCET slide, this would be online. But with SmarterMeasure, it is content or instructional delivery method agnostic. So if you're using it for your students and you teach online or you teach face-to-face, the students will just be taking the assessment. It's not going to be catered to specifically online or face-to-face. And I think some of that will make a little bit more sense as I move on. I hope that answered your question, but if not, feel free to elaborate. So what about parents? Parents have been drilling these non-cognitives into students, well, their children, from day one, whether they knew it or not, by reading books like The Little Engine That Could, I Think I Can, I Think I Can, I Think I Can, or The Tortoise and the Hare, Slow and Steady Wins the Race. So why did we stop measuring these non-cognitives after kindergarten? And are you beginning to see the picture that non-cognitive skills matter, but, you know, not saying or taking away from cognitive ability, but there is another side to the learner to explore, and that is those non-cognitive skills, or their non-cognitive indicators. They help determine student retention, employer satisfaction, online course success, and parents value them as well. And this is a good way to describe in a chart or in a picture what I mean by, yes, non-cognitives matter, and so do cognitive abilities for students. So when we're looking at types of data that's used to predict learner success, think of your learner, and this could be an online learner or a face-to-face learner, but think of your learner heuristically, you know, on a spectrum. Yes, their aptitude and their cognitive ability does matter as it relates to their success, but so doesn't their attitude toward learning and their situation in life. So all of these combined look at that student heuristically, and what we at SmarterMeasure can do is focus on the attitude and that situation in life. That's the non-cognitives that we're bringing to the picture. You already have tools that will identify the student's cognitive ability, and that is very relevant. It's not, I'm not saying it's not important, but look at the student's situation in life as well as their attitude toward learning. What are non-cognitive skills? We talked about cognitive versus non-cognitive, but what are non-cognitives or non-cognitive indicators? Some might call it grit, if you're looking for a one-word term for the whole matter of non-cognitive skills, but it could be anything from productivity, discipline, motivation. This is just a short list here. Maturity, procrastination, things that the learner will draw upon to be successful, things inside of the learner. So now that we have an idea of what non-cognitives are, can non-cognitive skills be taught? What we like to use is the analogy of a tiger. Think of your learner as a tiger. While you can't necessarily change a tiger's stripes overnight, because it's taken that student or that learner, however old they are, to get to where they are as far as the non-cognitive skills they possess, whether they're a procrastinator or whether they're not good at managing their time or whether they are motivated or maybe they are not motivated. You may not be able to change those stripes overnight, but you can teach that tiger to hunt in a different environment through self-awareness and some strategies and just maybe some tutoring if it's related to their technology or their reading skills. There's ways to step in and help that student through self-awareness to get the support they need related to those non-cognitive skills so that they can be successful. Now, how can you identify non-cognitive? There's a lot of ways. You could use a lot of different questionings. You could do observations. There's a lot of different things out there that you could use to identify or create a database of students who possess strengths or weaknesses. I just went ahead and cut all that out for our purposes today. Since you have the license to SmarterMeasure, use the SmarterMeasure Learning Readiness Indicator. What is it specifically? It's a 110-item web-based skills inventory that measures a student's level of readiness for studying online. Now, that doesn't mean that, and I say online, or technology rich. We have gone through a lot of name changes and such to make it more instructional delivery method agnostic. But the original intent of the product back when it was ready, and we were ready when Ivy Tech first signed on. So if you've been with Ivy Tech long enough, you may have heard of Ready. But we are the SmarterMeasure learning readiness indicator. So there is the stress on learning. There's no online specific there. So I guess I probably should have taken that out. But it has been used by over 600 colleges and universities since 2002. So we're 16 years old. We've been fully vetted, if you would, because more than 4 million students have used SmarterMeasure in those 16 years. It is nationally normed. It is standardized. If you wanted to go to our website to see information about the item reliability and the construct validity, you may do so, smartermeasure.com. But I pulled some stats. Over 51,000 students from Ivy Tech have been using SmarterMeasure for the last 9 years, so since 2009. And here's just a short list of some of the colleges and universities that are using our system to date. But when we talk about what SmarterMeasure is, it is a non-cognitive indicator or instrument measuring their non-cognitives. Our assessment engine that we're recently deploying is specific enough that we do have cognitive assessments, math and writing, readiness pieces. We're also in the competency-based education space, and the ability for schools to author their own. Now, this is just telling you what we as a company are, but we'll focus on the non-cognitive piece today, which is the learning readiness indicator, going through some name changes. So things may be changing over the next year or two, but SmarterMeasure, the learning readiness indicator, SmarterMeasure learning readiness indicator, it's all what your school has a license for. It has 7 sections, as you see here. We're measuring those non-cognitives. There are life factors, what's happening outside of the learner's life, individual attributes, what's happening internally in the student, that attitude toward learning. What are their learning styles or preferences? There's 2 technical sections. So what is their technical competency and technical knowledge is expanding on that, because this is a very basic technical competency, but we are trying to identify the students who don't possess basic technical skills, because those are the ones who will immediately be at a disadvantage over the students who can navigate a computer fairly well. On-screen reading rate and recall, and typing speed and accuracy, so they're keyboarding. This is just a different way to compile those and organize those 7 sections. Looking at the students internally, so that's the individual attributes and learning styles. Externally, what's going on outside with the life factors. And then there's 3 skills sets. So looking at that student heuristically, holistically. Individual attributes, you'll notice, has several subscales within it, as does learning styles, as does life factors. So the term life factors and the term individual attributes, you can easily tell what's inside or going on outside the student's life, but these are more specific areas that we're measuring. We're measuring their motivation, their control over procrastination, their time management skills, their willingness to ask for help, their locus of control. And then for life factors, how much time do they have to study? Do they have a place that's dedicated with the equipment necessary, a desk, a computer, access to the internet to study? Do they have a strong reason for going to college? Do they have support from their family and their employer to do so? And do they have any apprehension about their prior skills related to technology and academics that they're bringing in and concerned about based on that prior work? So these are what we're measuring in a different way to look at without having to take the whole thing. I'll send you some logins if you'd like to take it from start to finish. It does take the learner anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to complete the full 7 sections. But again, at the end, they see this report, and that's what we're going to focus on. And first, though, why should schools, or why should you as a faculty member at Ivy Tech use SmarterMeasure in your course? It helps you prepare yourself with information about your students from the get-go. The sooner they're taking it, the better. Maybe you could have an assignment that first week or that first day of class where they're taking it. If it's a face-to-face class, they can take it at home. They don't have to take it in a computer lab, but if you have access to a computer lab, you could certainly take the students there and they could do it during class, or it could be a homework assignment. Of course, if it's an online class, it's something that they can do at the convenience of their in their own home and on their own time, as long as they take it within the amount of time allotted by you, and then they can get credit for having done so. But again, we'll look at those handouts as to even more ways to engage the students in that. You know, first they need to take it though. But it helps proactively supporting students where they have weaknesses. You can provide additional support, whatever resources that are available for students at Ivy Tech. And the links that we provide, we'll point those out. You can empower students with insight to overcome any obstacles that they may face that they are not aware of. Discover gaps in student services, and then these two are more long-term, with score trending to improve practices, and then long-term analysis to be to increase the predictive nature of the instrument. Since we're not doing a full demo of the actual assessment, here's a couple of screen captures so you can kind of see what it looks like from a student vantage point. Ivy Tech has its own branding going across, so this generic banner is just from my sample site. But as you see, this is an example of the life factors section. They're just reading the questions and answering the degree to which it is applicable to them or not. We provide all the technical support. If they have to stop and come back later, they can easily do so. They can change the size of the font. This is the individual attributes section, and I checked off a few of these boxes before I turned it in, but as you see, it's nothing too overwhelming. And this does echo those same stop buttons and help buttons. They're on every page of the assessment. Upon completion, this is the big part for faculty to see. The student, as well as faculty too, the student sees a report that highlights their strengths and points out any opportunities for improvement, as you see here in the color key. We don't even call them weaknesses. I'm calling it a weakness to you, but the report is calling it to the student an opportunity to improve. So anything that's blue is considered a strength. Anything that's red is that opportunity to improve. And then there's two colors in between. The assessment summary is what we're looking at right now. So it does give them a score with the color coding and a percentage for life factors, personal attributes, all of the sections that are included. If your particular assessment that your students are taking at Ivy Tech doesn't have one or more of these sections, it won't appear in the report. So the student won't wonder, well, what is this typing and why didn't I see that? It will be removed from the student's vantage point. They won't even know it existed. But this is all 7 sections, of course, once a student has completed it. You'll notice they have print, download report areas underneath their name, which is in the upper left-hand corner. So they can easily download this report, which is one of the best practices, is have this student, when they're complete, to get full credit for having taken it, have them download a copy of their report and then upload it into Canvas, IvyLearn. That's a way to make them, especially if you're taking an online class, but even in your face-to-face courses, you may want your students to turn in their assignments into Canvas. So this is an early way, the sooner the better, for them to demonstrate that they know how to do that. And if they don't, then they can learn and ask, and then you can help them. There's also an email report button, and this will email a PDF to any email address. So we take away the extra steps for some students who may be technically challenged. But as you see, learning styles does not pertain to the color coding. It's just what it is. We're not looking for any specific combination, but we'll look at an actual report of a sample student in a minute so you can see how it interacts. But this is just more of the summary of the report showing the typing and their scores compared to the national averages. You could click on any of the buttons to see the scores. And the next slide does show life factors. And this is what I want to focus on. Life factors and individual attributes used to be called personal attributes. See, I need to update this slide. But life factors and individual attributes, the schools that do analysis of their data, and I'm not sure that Ivy Tech has, if so, I'm not privy to what it has found, but the schools that do analyze their SmarterMeasure student data and compare it, the life factors and the individual attribute sections seem to be the most predictive or indicative of student success. So it does make sense if the student doesn't have enough time and they don't have a place, they don't have a reason, those types of things, along with their motivation and things going on intrinsically, those can be a deterrent to their success. So having the student look at their report, not just take an assessment, but look at it and see. So if this is me, if I'm a student, or if this is my student, I click on life factors, I need to address time and reason for going to college. So maybe there's some things that I need to let go of my current schedule so that I can build in time to study. And then what's my reason? Maybe there's really not a strong reason, and then they need to kind of explore that a little bit further to help. So that is a way to know with life factors, yes, they had a green overall, but it looks like time and reason are the two areas that they can improve in. Now we don't just leave and I don't have a slide that shows, we'll show a real report, a sample report, but we go through several paragraphs to define what we mean by time and place and reason, and so that they're not left to wonder, what does this mean? I just didn't have a screen capture of that. So how can your students access SmarterMeasure? If you want to have them start taking it today or tomorrow or when school starts, again, the sooner the better, because it's tough to help a student if they're already dropped out, right? So the sooner they're taking SmarterMeasure, the better. There's two ways. One is through a single sign-on link that you can place in your courses in IvyLearn. So that's all integrated with the LTI integration. Or if you're not necessarily using IvyLearn for students to interact in, you could send them to your traditional ivytech.smartermeasure.com URL. This one is less integrated. It's not integrated, but this is the one that has the SmarterMeasure banner for Ivy Tech running across the screen. This is where students would go to log in. Each campus should have their own username and password. So if you're wanting to go this route, you can always reach out to me and I could send you the student logins for your particular course. But I do go into, back on the slides, I have some screen captures and a link to the, next slide, to the specific way to add it in Canvas. And obviously this is not your specific IvyLearn, this is just a Canvas account, but SmarterMeasure is located in the external tools. So you can learn more specifically.
Would you mind if I just grab control for just a second? I think I can demonstrate how you can add this tool directly into our IvyLearn platform, if that's okay.
Perfect. Yes, wonderful.
Okay, great. Give me just a moment to switch presenters.
Okay.
Okay, so as Tara was demonstrating, we have a couple ways that you can access the SmarterMeasure test within the IvyLearn environment and also at Ivy Tech. So in your chat box, I sent you a quick link to ivytechsmartermeasure.com. We also have it available directly from ivytech.ready.info. They're both the very same pages, but there's a couple ways that you can get there. This actually launches right off of the ivytech.edu online information on our Ivy Tech webpage. So to do this in IvyLearn, you go in, of course, log in to IvyLearn. Select a course from your dashboard. Okay, so you know, familiar with your course cards. So select the appropriate course card. Okay. Go into settings. So here's your course menu. We're going to click settings. And we're going to go to navigation. Remember, navigation is where we can add, change, or make adjustments to our course menu. And if you scroll down, you will find SmarterMeasure as an option that's already built into your course menu. You just have to make it available. So from the settings page here, we're going to select the pull-down menu. We're going to select Enable. And you notice that it's now part of our visible course menu for students. And before you exit out of this page, you want to make sure that you click the Save button. Okay. Now, when you go into your actual course, you'll see that SmarterMeasures is a menu item right on the course menu. Students can click on this. You'll need to do a little bit of setup ahead of time. So here is the actual assessment. Okay. It's going to ask you to confirm that this is to activate the actual form. So you can go through here. You can also set up some tags, and this is Tara's more area of expertise here. So feel free to jump in on these assessment preferences. And then once you've made these adjustments, you're going to click Activate Assessment. Tara, any guidelines on setting this up within your course?
Yes, if you'll scroll up to the very top of that page where you were, Kathy, if you decide that you don't want to have all 7 sections, as you see, there's all 7 sections listed in the particular order that the student will see, but you can click on one that you want to skip, say typing, and just drag it and drop it to the gray box to skip it. So that would not be provided to your students if you would now have 6. Or in the same token or vein, you can use the drag and drop to change the order. So if life factors is normally first and you want to put it last, you can drag it and drop it to the very end, so that would be the order. And there's a few other things, like for the reading, you can, over on the version where it says 11th grade version, you could click on that and that would show you different grade levels. Maybe you're teaching a class that's more remedial in nature. They wouldn't see that you selected the 8th grade passage, but you could select the 8th grade, or maybe you wanted to do the 13th grade, the freshman college passage. So that is how easily you can change that. Really and truly, I wouldn't really, that's it for that part. And then at the bottom, did you want to add under the preferences, the results mode? It does default to the student seeing the report, which is definitely what you want, but there's another choice to add a report and custom text in that drop-down menu. There's 2 also that would hide the report, but if you did the report and custom text, then the student would be able to see a custom message that you could provide in there. Maybe it's that call to action. Don't forget to upload, and if you scroll down, there should be a drop-down box a little bit further down. No? Yes, course text, custom text. In that box, you could say, thank you for completing SmarterMeasure. Don't forget to upload the report into the Dropbox by whatever the day to receive full credit or full points for having completed it, something to that effect. And then that would automatically appear in every student's report along with their scores. And then the only really other one to consider is that right above, the assessment completion notification emails. Since you do have it integrated, you probably don't need to, but if you want to be notified via email every single time a student completes SmarterMeasure, you could just put your email address right there where it says in that block assessment completion notification emails box, and it would send you a PDF of every single student's report as they're completing it. However, since you do have it integrated here, from your faculty advantage point, all you have to do is click the SmarterMeasure link, and then it'll give you a list of all of your students who've completed it. So that might be a little bit above and beyond what you want, but you could, if you wanted an email for those students. And then just as Kathy said, make sure to hit the activate button or it will not be available to the student. And then they'll be able to see the SmarterMeasure link. When they go in, this provides that single sign-on experience for the student. So they don't have to go to a separate URL. They're in IvyLearn, they're in your course. This is now ready for them to go in and take it. You'll notice where the SmarterMeasure link was, there is a View Results button. In the upper
We're now in the student view, so.
Oh, okay, perfect. So this is what the student sees. They go in and they have to answer just a few demographic questions, and then they're right into the learning, they're right into the life factors or whichever sections you've included in your specific instance of SmarterMeasure, and then they'll see their report at the very end. So they can immediately start taking it. And then what's awesome too is even if they're halfway finished, you'll still see all of their scores for that. They have to wait till the very end to see their report, but you would know how much they've done. From your vantage point, you will see a percentage complete, but that doesn't mean that, if they got an 86%, that doesn't mean they got a B, and that's your view results. Yes, that's how you'll see your students' results. Right now, you've only had one start, so if you don't have anybody showing, it's because nobody's started it yet. But right now you have that one instance that Kathy just did. So that's what you're able to see. You can click on the name and see the full report that the student will be able to see when they're finished. So you've got a lot of, everything's available for you in IvyLearn. So that's what's so great about this integration. You don't have to send your students to a third-party URL. It's right there in your course, and they complete it. And then what I would recommend is those discussion board questions, have them write a paper and turn it in about the report, because you want to make sure that they're looking at their scores and aware of where they need to get some support if they need it.
So again, to add this to your course menu, you're going to go into your course, select Settings. Under the Navigation tab, you're going to select the item from the many LTI tools that we have. You will click the Enable button and then Save, and then it'll appear on your course menu. You can also drag and drop this if you need to move this somewhere on your course menu. Don't forget to save. We also had a question a moment ago from Piper, who wanted to know, do students take this once per term? Can they do it once they're in college? Do they take it? Is there a different way they can get access to these reports if they've done it before? I know that in the past, Tara, we've offered we've had some programs who have tried to share those reporting results. I don't think with a lot of success. So my recommendation for that, and Tara, maybe you have additional suggestions, is that if the student has taken it before, that they can submit that report to you, just as Tara was suggesting, when you create an assignment to go along with the assessment, they can submit that report to you if they've taken it before and they still have it. Otherwise, I think the best course of action would be for them to take that particular course again, or that particular assessment.
Right, and because it depends on when they took it. You know, if they took it last week, not much has changed. But if they took it a few months ago, or maybe even more than that, so much could have changed in their life factors or in their motivation. Maybe they're now a parent and they weren't before, or maybe they're not working and they were, or so retaking it is very beneficial because something may have changed, or maybe they took some technology classes or something. So yes,
Right.
everything that Kathy said is perfect. They can, if they did take it and they've taken it recently, they can just upload their scores into your Dropbox from that other course, so they don't have to retake it. But also, also note that that you may be offering all 7, wherever they took it may have only provided 5. So with that whole ability to change those sections and rearrange that order, it may just be a good idea to retake it if they don't have all of it whenever they did take it. So I think that this slide is a little, what's the word? Less in depth than than what Kathy showed, but we do have just a generic user's guide for Canvas. But what Kathy showed you is way more inclusive of how you would specifically do that within IvyLearn. But I do have a few other slides that just reiterate the importance of SmarterMeasure being used. And early on, we like analogies, the tiger and all those other things that I said, but we use the analogy for SmarterMeasure as a thermometer. It's a very sophisticated thermometer because we're measuring more than one temperature. But more important than just taking your child's temperature if they appear to be sick is taking action, appropriate action based on that temperature. If you noticed it was a low-grade fever, you would probably give them something over the counter, move on with your day. But if you notice that that child had a high fever, you would probably go to the doctor or some other place depending on that actual temperature. And that's what we mean with SmarterMeasure. More important than just making the student take it and taking their temperature that way is creating engagement, reflective type activities that are around that report so that students are aware of their temperature, so to speak, or their readiness. There is a separate admin portal, but we did show you, and I would certainly encourage the IvyLearn integration that Kathy showed you, because that's all there in one spot. Your vantage point as the faculty member as well as your students, it's all in there. I didn't really provide many screen captures of the admin, but I believe originally, before we had any integration in your old LMS, that's how faculty members were accessing. There was a different login dependent on your campus, but we'll definitely encourage the IvyLearn administrative vantage point. But now I wanted to get to those handouts. I sent Kathy, and she uploaded them into the handouts area here in GoToMeeting. You have some ideas that we've gathered and we've learned from our other your counterparts at other schools that use SmarterMeasure. Anything to kind of drill or drive the student to engage in their results is the goal. That's the objective. So you could have anything from discussion board questions. One of the handouts is specifically about that. It is suggested discussion board questions relating to each section and subscale within a section. So you can pick and choose, create a discussion board or more than one question around the students' reports, get them talking about it. The earlier the better, so that they may not feel isolated. You're building community. You're getting the students to participate and discuss in where or how they may get some additional support and ideas, and they can learn from each other. Actually, let me go into the next slide is a little bit more. So craft that discussion board question and monitor it and put in your own links for support. If you notice that a lot of students are having issues with their technical support, well, here's where students at Ivy Tech can go and do it. So you can really help the students as they're learning more about themselves. And also, because it all is a strength versus an opportunity for improvement, there's no grade. This is not held against you. This is really just for your self-improvement and for us to get to know you better and find out how we can better assist you. This is just all a win-win situation. So catering it that way, or making sure it's known to the student that this scoring is not held against you. It's just so that we can learn about you. Another one is that upload. There's that email report button in the upper left hand, or the upload. They can download and then upload a report in the LMS. That is a behavior that they're going to have to get used to doing if they're not already in Canvas. So the sooner they know, the better. And if they don't understand how to do that, then they can certainly reach out and you could show them, or somebody could assist them in getting that taken care of. The next one is a paper. You call it a reflection paper. You could call it I believe the next slide calls it a success plan, but some type of writing sample that you could use. And that's what's great about it. It doesn't have to be long, 2 to 3 pages. The objective is prompting the student to read in detail their report and reflect on its findings, as well as it could serve as an early writing sample. So now you've got a writing sample from the students, and they're also uploading that into the Dropbox. So they're really getting familiar with navigating IvyLearn if they're not already familiar. But there's a lot of links in the report, and I'm going to end with that, showing you what that is. But you could also do a student success plan. This could be more on a personal or professional development. How do they plan on improving themselves through their education at Ivy Tech, and not so course specific? So either one, you could go depending on which strategy or which objective you have. And then in group activity, group the students together. If it's a face-to-face class, it's even easier. They can put them in groups that way, small groups, or if it's an online class, they may have already been assigned in a cohort, and they could be grouped up that way, but they could look at their reports that way. An easy one is by learning styles, because that's not a strength or weakness, that's just what it is. So you could put all of your solitary learners together, although they may not want to talk, or your social learners, right? Be strategic in how you're grouping them, and then have them look at the report that way. And then another school, they have the students looking at the specific links for support that are at the bottom of the report, and they'll write up a paper on that. So let me get you to that. So in a student's report, I'm going to go to my sample account. So we're not going to actually look at specific student report. It'll probably be me. Yeah, you see, here I am. You'll be able to see the same vantage point in IvyLearn. So this will just be a list of your students. So you're not going to have to see everybody else's. All the students who've started it or completed it, you'll see here in Canvas or IvyLearn. And you'll be able to click on the name of the student, the link, to see that full report. And you can see quickly, though, who has a high or a medium or a low score. Maybe you've skipped sections, so you'll be able to see where those students are. And as I said, if you see a 100%, that does not mean the student has an A+. That just means they're all the way done, so you can give them full credit for having completed it. But let's look at the full report, because this is what the student is seeing. It's in the shell in IvyLearn, so it looks a little bit different for them, but still. The report shows the summary, and this one I have a few extra sections, so disregard the math and the writing. But learning styles, and then the typing. So you as the faculty member can look in and peek in and see exactly what they're seeing. So yes, life factors, green, that's great. However, skills is a yellow. So let's see. Here's what we mean by time. We give thorough definitions about everything. If for place, helpful hints to create an appropriate place to study. There's 8 of those. And reason. But in this student's case, it's skills. So there is some concern over their academic skills. One of the best things you can do to help yourself is to find out about all the resources for support that your school provides, and then point them to these resources, because that's what the last slide was about, those resource recommendations. Have the students click on, whether it's finding time, finding a place, the value of a college degree, so that's reason. So we've got links, and they're different for every section. So individual attributes, if this were my student, maybe time management and locus of control, because they're still 56%. So that would be maybe something I would have them look into. And then clicking on those links. You have more links than this one, I'm sure. The learning styles. This student, that's me, but there's 4 dominant or preferred styles for this one, and they can learn about all 4 of those, as well as the others. But what does it mean to be a logical learner? And this is great because the student is learning about the way that they prefer to learn, and encourage them to learn about those and incorporate that as they're learning new material in your course and all courses. So what does it mean to be a visual learner, and how can they apply that to their coursework and their studies, as well as being a solitary learner? So they get a lot of information just from this one section. And then the reading section, as I mentioned, they will never see that if they didn't do well, it doesn't mean they can't read necessarily. It means that they need to slow down when they're reading from a computer screen. Much of the work nowadays in college classes, and especially online classes, is delivered on screen. So if they're in the habit of just surfing the web, they've got to break that habit when they're in their coursework and read it for detail. And this will tell you if they did. If they just, oh, I didn't read it for detail. That's fine. You just can't do that in your college coursework and expect to retain that information. Print it out, do all kinds of different things to make sure you are treating that information like you would your textbook. And then technical competency has 2 subscales. They're computer and internet. Again, it is basic. There are 10 questions, and they're related to attaching a file and using a search engine, and listening to an audio file. What's another one? Saving a file, printing a file. So if they bomb it, then they don't even possess those skills. So they are definitely in need of some assistance. We have some links here that they can use, but whatever assistance you provide at Ivy Tech is definitely probably something that they would benefit from. Technical knowledge, at the bottom, you can find out, do they have a computer? How old is it? How are they connecting to the internet? So that's something that's great that you can find out on each student. And then last is typing. If your students are slower than 20 words per minute, then they're one of those hunt and peck typists, and they could benefit from some of the resources that are around that. And again, it doesn't mean that if you aren't an expert typist that you're never going to get a good grade. No, that's not what we're saying. Looking at the student holistically, they're probably already pressed for time, as we all are as adults. They may have a job, they may have 2 jobs, they may have a family, they may have be a single parent, they may be taking care of a parent, and they may have a full load of classes, and they don't know how to type. So if they could bolster their typing, that could save them so much time as they're doing their courses. So I leave you with that. I'll actually show you too how easily they can print and download their report into PDF. So it's all available for the student as well as for you. They can download or print. And then I'm going to pause here because I realize we're 3 minutes away from the top of the hour. Are there any questions?
Tara, we have a couple questions here. Yep. We have a question. Does SmarterMeasure assess students' study skills?
Not specifically their study habits or skills. However, there are a few links in the individual attributes specifically that do link to that, and to help students with note-taking and study skills. And learning styles might kind of be an echo on top of that, but not at this time. However, I do think that, yes, that is definitely something that should be. See, let me go right back here, guys. Just 1 second, because I want to say that you guys have a better, oh, there should have been that. I wanted to look at individual attributes. Yeah. So these are the resources that your students see. So one of those is how to study skills, help information. And these aren't our resources. These are just publicly available websites that we found that pertain to setting goals and staying motivated and beating procrastination. So some of that could be something that you could point the students to that need assistance with that. You know, I encourage you to click on the study links and note-taking strategies and write on those or something to that effect. Oh, this one's going to student lingo. Okay, so hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you. We also had several people who were really curious about the opening slides that you shared with us regarding the data, both from the employer point of view and the student or faculty point of view. And I know that you offered to send me the slide deck. If possible, I think everyone would love to see that slide deck and specifically more information about the data that you shared with us today.
Oh, definitely. I wonder if there's a way that I can upload it to the hand. I don't know if I could, but
you can. You can.
Okay.
You're actually an organizer. So if you go into the Handouts section, click that open, you should have the option to drag and drop or to choose a file.
Let's see. I'm in the handouts. It's showing me the handouts. It's just not sharing. No. Well, maybe I should share my screen and show you what I see. All right, so here's my file. It doesn't seem to want to eat it or take it.
Yeah, are you not? Your screen looks a little bit different than mine.
So maybe
if not, you can email it to me, and then I would be glad. I have everyone's email address. I can send that out as soon as I receive it. So that's not a problem.
Okay. Then I think that'll be the best course of action because I seem to be unable to. Okay. I'll work on that email and send that out straight away.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much. As we wait for any last-minute questions to come into our question panel, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, our faculty members who have taken time out of their busy non-instructional week activities to join us today. There is a recording of this particular presentation as well as the handouts. We'll be making that available through our faculty resource center that's located in IvyLearn, and then we'll also make that available to you on our Ivy Tech YouTube channel. So you do have a chance to review the presentation again. I'd also like to thank Tara McLaughlin from SmarterMeasure. It's been a wonderful presentation, and we thank you very much for all the information you shared with us today.
Thank you, everybody. It was such a pleasure to meet with everyone, and I really do encourage you to use this tool to your advantage and your students' advantage, of course, and reach out. I should have left the slide deck. My contact information was on the last slide, and I think I already shut it down so I could send it over. But if you have any specific questions or just in general, or you'd like to see more information about any of the research that's been grounded, here is my contact information. Just Tara at smarterservices.com, or you can always give me a call. I'm available anytime, and I would love to assist and make sure that you guys are taking full advantage of this service that Ivy Tech provides to you and your students.
Well, thank you very much. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions coming in. We have several people thanking you for the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar for everyone today. Again, thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.